Elite Assembly. Step off the scene, flash is the Toyleet crew. We're the kings of the game, yeah, the chosen few. From the shadows, we rise with the rarest find. Collect them, respect them, we're one of a kind. Toyleet, ready in the streets. Elite with the beats in this collectible feast. Toyleet, down in the streets, with the heart of the beat. We're all playmates, me. Check our stacks, our collection supreme. Limited editions, every collector's dream. We're the myths, we're the legends, with every drop. Taking over the block, we never stop. In the alleys where the echoes play, Toyleet's the name, hear what we say. Rising, thriving, always vibing. In our realm we're always diving. Toyleet, bringing in the street, the live Toyleet, setting the pace. With a snap of the case and a click of the lock, Toyleet's on top and we're ready to rock. Collecting more than just toys. We're up. We're up. We're up. Toyleet, now in the street, when the heart of the beat, we're all playmates, me. We're the free, we're the Toyleet. What's the flow? Cause in this zone, we never admit defeat. Come for the thrill, stay for the chase. Toyleet's in the place, set in the pace.
What is up? Oh my
What's
God, look
up?
at that. Look at that.
How's it going, brother?
Mr. Wonderful New York Giants jersey.
Yeah, brother, you know it. Awesome, man.
I can't believe that football season's starting, dude. Holy shit.
No, it's like just around the corner, dude. Like
Yeah.
a bunch of people started Venmoing me in their fantasy football fees for the league I run. So all those guys are doing their thing. Good deal. Man, well, we got a lot to cover tonight. But first, he's Ed Axion Figs.
And he is the Mr. Wonderful Travis.
Awesome. And together I think we're known as something.
Everybody keeps calling us a toilet for some reason. I don't know
Toilet?
why. But
No, but that's not it. It can't be toilet.
But you know, we're elite. So what is that? What is that? What is
Right, we're like elite, like
Yeah,
the
what is
plastic.
it?
It's plastic elite.
Yeah, we're king of the crop. You know, Toyleet. That's the name.
That's it. Toyleet.
Toyleet.
Together we are Toyleet. So
yeah, together we're Toyleet.
for those
Not
that are
toilet.
right, exactly. For those that are just tuning in tonight, we're this if this is your first time catching us live or during the replay, we appreciate you guys jumping in and listening. Ed, myself, huge plastic fans. We love toys, and it's one of our hobbies. I'm the creator of Hexastack, which is a display system I'm working on. Keep some attention on that because real quick it's going to be coming to the forefront. That said, we like to talk about our passion of plastic and what we refer to kind of as toy adjacent, and it might be that Deadpool Wolverine movie from the other day. It might be the Planet of the Apes. We might talk a little bit of that. Might talk comic books, right? A lot of graphic novels and comic books tie into the toys that we like. So we always get together once a week and we like to throw down and go down through the items that interest us. We focus a lot on the independent toy lines. If you're looking for someone to listen to that's going to talk to you about all of the San Diego Comic-Con announcements, all of the, announcements that came over the last weekend, we're not the show. You're going to want to go over to one of our buddies over on Monday nights, Pump the Toys, Unboxing Art on Wednesdays. Check out one of those other guys that's doing a lot with the mainstream stuff. We here on Tuesday nights for the Toyleet Takeover, we like to focus on a lot of the independent news. There's been a lot of news this week from the mainstream stuff. There was definitely some subtle, there's definitely some stuff that is focused on, some independent toys or some, on the lower side of the known. We will talk a little bit about that tonight, but not as much as normal. And then we always talk about what our pickups were. Did we get anything this last week? We'll also talk about if one of those things that we got this week, or maybe something we've gotten recently, meets the Toyleet standard, right? Like, is it going to go up on those shelves like the rest of those figures up there, or is it going to end up in the toilet, right? I think that's what we talk about. And we always like to shout out someone from the community, someone who's part of the brotherhood per se, and doing good things in the community. It might be bringing something to market, might be promoting others. There's a lot of folks on there like Oz and Punk with Toys and different folks that help promote others within the brotherhood or community, as they say. And we love to do a little shout out throwback to Ed and his son's show that we eventually kind of formed into the Toyleet show here. And then we cover weekly news, and we always have a main topic. And this week's main topic, if you didn't realize, it's San Diego Comic-Con. We're going to talk about all of the new releases, all of the mainstream. No, we're not going to do that. It's going to be toys through the decades, right, Ed?
Toys through the decades.
Yeah.
But I just had a thought when you were talking. Let me just spin this out there to you.
Yeah.
During our Toylet and Toyleet segment, you know what we need? We need a golden hexa stack for when they're put onto the shelf. We can just set them on there for the show, and then just zoom in.
I like that, and we could put that out on the Instagram, and
yeah,
we've seen some get dumped in the toilets. Maybe what we could do is display them on that golden stack, the golden pan, and shower it with messages and likes. That'd be good. So Ed, anything? Did you get anything this week? What's going on, man?
Did I pick up anything this week? I did not get anything in this week. I've been having a lot of fun playing with my Conan, though.
Okay,
I did get the shipping notice for my replacement Mad Dog from the Fist. So
sweet.
Esteban messaged me today. Well, I shouldn't say I got the mess. He told me it's getting shipped out tomorrow, so it'll be coming.
That's awesome.
It might not be the perfect ideal thing yet, but he'll get there, and he's definitely taking care of the customer service part of it, though. So that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, that's where you want to start, right? You want to see that you want to see that put to the forefront, right? Because that's going to help promote and push things, and hopefully folks will continue to support them. While we've talked about it, right? That the product may not be what you're used to, it may not be there yet, but we do foresee good things from them, and want to support someone who is really just a member of the brotherhood community, kind of out there trying to make his way through the onto the other side, rather than just being a consumer, being a producer and manufacturer. So that's awesome to hear that he's a positive person to deal with, and he's doing right by the consumer.
Yeah, and I also excited because once the SDCC stuff can start shipping, I have that Judge Dredd Scorched Earth figure coming in from Hella Dope Toys. It's sold out in a lot of places, and I believe Hella Dope still has several of them left. So
which one is that?
It's called Judge Dredd Scorched Earth. It's a Haya Toys. They did like the Rambo, and I think they did what's the movie with Kurt Russell and Jean-Claude, Universal Soldier. They did
Universal Soldier. Okay.
Yeah, Universal Soldier. I did one of those too. So but they did a Judge Dredd, and then this one is called Scorched Earth, and he basically just comes, it's the same figure basically as the original standard one, but to make it an SDC exclusive, they just added like a soft goods cloak and some other bits. So
that's cool. Good deal.
Excited about getting that. How about you? You got anything new coming in?
I did. I got a few items. These were some orders that I placed through some other vendors online recently. Well, this one goes way back. I ended up ordering this from. I ended up ordering these from who is it? From Target. I ended up snagging a little Undertaker Ultimate Edition. Nice, yeah. So I got this one. I'm really, really pleased with that.
How's that trench coat on that guy? Is it cloth?
Yeah. It's a fabric. It's a fabric coat here. So let me see if I can bring it in here. So it is fabric. They do a good job with it. I'm pretty happy with that figure for the most part.
I'd like that figure just for the coat and the hat.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a good figure. It's not bulky. Like one of the big things with the WWE figures I've always found is that they do fabric or they do rubber a lot of times on that stuff. And
Yeah.
like some of the older elites were like a rubber, and it's just like so dense, like the figure doesn't move in any other way. But there was a clearance or a discount, like they were written down. I normally only go to the Hello Boys, but they didn't have them.
Calling you out, man. Calling you out.
And Target had them on the cheap, and then I typically only collect. I used to collect the elite figures, pretty much for myself and my kids to play with, but I've moved away from those quite a bit. And but I did order this one, and they were on sale at Target like a while back on their web. And I ordered him, and I ordered his brother or his partner for 3-minute warning. So I didn't anticipate them getting ultimates just because they were kind of lower on the ranking. Maybe they'll come out with ultimates in the future, but I did get those elites, and those are cool. But they were on sale, so I snagged them at one point, and then I recently got another one. So it was really a wrestling packed shipment the last the last week. But there was this is the Ultimate Bobby Lashley from the Ultimate. He recently got released from wrestling, so he recently left the WWE. So I went and snagged him just in case I couldn't get a hold of him through anybody else. I went and got him where I knew I could, at least temporarily.
He's not out of wrestling, right? He just got released from WWE. Right?
Yeah, so I wanted to make
sure
sure
in AEW or something else, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to snag it in the ultimate form because I don't collect the other brands like I don't know if it's like Jazzwares or whoever does the AEW and whoever has TNA. Like I don't deal with their figures. They don't scale exactly the same. I don't care for the quality and the articulation on some of them. So I stick with the Mattel for those. Call me an elitist or an ultimate list or something like that. But yeah, I got those. I did get one more, but that's gonna take me to
God, if you have a weak stomach, you may stop right here. Anybody hungry?
So I did get one more, and it's the elite. I think this one is what is this one? This is the other one's Rosie, so this must be Jamal. So this is the one that was known as Umaga eventually. He's since passed, but I got his, and his head like doesn't stay on. So like this is definitely getting the toilet. Like no matter what I did, like his head just doesn't stay. It's really, really weak. It was like right out of the box that way. There's nothing broke. It's just the fitting for the ball fitting there. It just doesn't work. So I threw some blue sticky tack in there so it would stay.
Does the hair get in the way or
no? The hair's like very, very thin. Like it's
really?
Not like strong, like where it's
so
it's
whatever
like,
happened, the ball peg in the neck socket just are not lining up right.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if they gaped the hole too much or whatever. Or, it just doesn't sit. So I use a little blue sticky tack to help keep it on.
Yeah.
For when it's posed and stuff. Again, I don't play with these ones. These are going for the shelf. But I definitely
So is it definitely a flusher or is he a floater? Oh, he's a flusher.
Yeah, that's a flusher.
Right down the shitter.
Yeah, that one's definitely going down the crapper. Just not happy with it. And I think I got that on replay, so it's going to loop until I turn it off.
That's even worse than them messing up the tattoo print, man.
Yeah. So, that one's definitely going to get a flush there. Not really pleased with the way that works. But, again, I'm going to put him on my shelf just because he's going to display with the rest of them. But I definitely, I would hold out. Maybe it was just that one. I didn't look online to see if other people experienced it. I'm gonna probably reach out to Realm of Toys and see if he had the same issue because I know he was snagging some cool pictures of 3-minute warning. So I'll ask him if he experienced the same situation. But yeah, that's just what I don't think we hit the chat up yet. Why don't we?
We have not hit the chat up yet. Let's go visit the chat real quick. So first, as always, Roll Keeper is in the house. Hello, Toyleet, and we got Mr. Matthew Matson. He's got his 2 streams going at once, and of course, he's got his show coming up shortly with Pop Blender, where they talk about pop culture stuff. I believe tonight they're reviewing Wolverine and Deadpool movie.
Cool. I might have to jump over there.
Yeah, Deadpool, Wolverine, whatever the title of that movie was.
If I drop off in the middle of our stream, Ed, that's the reason.
That's why? Okay. If I see you staring like this over at your other monitor, I'll know what's going on.
And I'll commenting over.
And we got Mr. Payne's toy samples in the house. Where are you guys? Hey, we start at 9:05 because we like to be on time, and we know that at 9:05 we could be on time.
We was cutting it close tonight, Ed.
Yep. Early is on time is late, and late is never good.
We'll throw back to TBS Saturday night Saturday night wrestling show.
Yep.
5 minutes after the hour.
Mr. Nolan is in the house, so we are now official. And then we got the man, Ostradamus Toys. Oz and I did a 24-hour stream last weekend, which was awesome. A lot of good times there. Unfortunately, it's not viewable on YouTube because they don't allow streams to be viewable over 12 hours. So Oz has to go in and cut it in 2 pieces and then put each half out as part 1 and part 2.
I didn't know that.
We did not know that either, but now you know. So if you're going to do a long stream over 12 hours, make sure you stop at 12 hours and then start back over. And then there's this guy. I do have a great show.
Who's this guy? I was watching the other one.
Yeah.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money.
What's up, Punk? I didn't see you jump in. Thank you for jumping in tonight.
What's another Conan? Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Conan, man. Forzetta's Girls looks really good. Then you got the Mezco one. Super 7's got theirs. And Savage Crucible has the one that looks like theirs. And now there's another one out. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that one. I'm going to be reviewing that in the news here next week for sure. It's definitely something that I want to take a deeper dive into.
Yeah, that one and the Frazetta Girls. Frazetta Girls looks really good too. And then we got Todd C's in the house. What's up, Todd? And one of the coolest dudes on the YouTubes, one of my good friends and my boss. And I love Ted shilling his shit. That was hilarious.
Yeah. He reached out Sunday in the middle of the day. It was like 90 degrees here, so I was spending some time in the pool and doing some things with the family. My wife's best friend was in town for a couple days, so we were all hanging out, and I got a side message from him. Hey, I'm going to need if you can, I'm going to need a little bumper music for Ted shilling his shit. So I took care of him.
I was dying. I knew it was your song, and then it's at the end. It's like Ted shilling his shit. I was like, that is awesome.
I went and got on my guitar and my microphone. I just started
I know
them together.
I know. I remember you asking me, is shit going to be okay to say? And I was like, you could say you're old enough now, Travis. You might look like you're 18, but it's okay to swear.
Hey, man, thank you very much. I'm nearing 40, so I appreciate that.
Oh, I'm cool. I like it here. On my show, I just get shit on.
No, dude, you guys are all good people.
You're awesome, man. And then Joe G's in the house. And huge props to Mr. Wonderful for his musical talents. And that's it for the chat right now, brother.
Awesome. So with that said, then let's go ahead and share my screen here. I think I've got it all set up properly. And let's preview the main topic tonight. So we have iconic toy lines, right? We talked about this through the decades. We're going to do a little bit of talking. We're going to start, I think, in the 70s, right, Ed? I think that a little bit before my time, right in the midst of your childhood. So we're going to cover, the 70s. There's going to be a little approach how we're going to do this, but what we did was we went ahead and picked our personal favorites from that decade. To define what we consider our iconic toy line, but we also did some research, believe it or not, this thinking nugget. And then Ed, we went to the old encyclopedias and started, pulling up the knowledge so we could speak to the actual toy of the decade. Right.
And for you youngins that don't know what encyclopedias are.
Oh, it's like pre-Wikipedia.
Yeah. They're books that you actually had to read to find out
that's
information because that was pre-Google.
Yeah, so, and that's what we used, right? Ed, we took the paper out.
We had to use those.
Yeah,
we didn't want to cheat.
A little preview into it with a little music melody. Take a drink and sit back and enjoy.
For galaxies far, to Eternia's might, Star Wars and He-Man shining so bright. Pokemon's power, Bratz with their flair, Lego bricks building, adventures to share. Iconic toy lines, through the decade we go, from G.I. WWF show. LOL, surprise with magic and glee. Join Toyleet Takeover where history's free. Action-packed heroes and worlds to explore. Each toy with a story and legends galore. Collecting the memories, the fun never ends. With Toyleet Takeover, relive it again. Iconic toy lines through the decades we go. From G.I. Joe to WWF show. LOL, surprise with magic and glee. Join Toyleet Takeover where history's free. Action-packed heroes and worlds to explore. Each toy with a story and legend galore. Collecting the memories, the fun never ends. With Toyleet Takeover, relive it again. Iconic toy lines through the decades we go. From G.I. Joe to WWF show. LOL, surprise with magic and glee. Join Toyleet Takeover where history's free. The toys of our childhood, the dreams that they bring. From past to the present, let's all sing. Iconic toy lines through the decades we go. From G.I. Joe to WWF show. LOL, surprise with magic and glee. Join Toyleet Takeover where history's free. Toyleet Takeover, the fun never ends. With iconic toy lines, let's play again.
So, a little preview to some of the toy lines and stuff.
It's so nice that you brought your daughter in to sing that song for you.
She's gotten really
nice
good.
to see you got that, that musical legacy going through the family. It's good.
I mean, the Fitz Five, that's what we call each other, There was some people that ripped off our name back in the, I don't know, what was it, like 70s or 80s? Jackson 5. It was so weird. It didn't even work.
Yeah.
At least use the F and the 5. It's just how it is. That said, I know we got I don't know if we saw that Nolan joined in just a second ago. Thanks, Nolan, for jumping on, brother. And then we're gonna go right on into our shout out from the creek.
Down by the creek where the water flows, we're shouting out to those who know. Spreading joy, sharing love, Toyleet fam, you rise above. Shout out from the creek, you're the best. Hype up the heroes who passed the test. Community stars shining bright, lifting each other, it feels so right.
And this week, Ed, I'm gonna throw it over to you.
Shout out from the crick this week is Chris from Shiny Plastic People. Chris is a really cool guy to hang out with on stream and stuff. He hung out with us on quite a few times on the Clubhouse, but he was there for a while on Saturday on the 24 hours. Right now, he's sitting at 453 subs or something like that on his YouTube channel. So he's getting really close to that 500 mark. So if you guys are not subscribed to Chris at SPP Toys, Shiny Plastic People, go on over there, give him a sub so he can get to that 500 mark and start getting some of that YouTube money. So Lawrence, being the owner of YouTube, has to start paying him too.
He can share a little bit.
Yeah, he can share, definitely. But yeah, Chris is a great guy. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Chris, but mostly does a lot of DC, McFarlane, and Superpower stuff. But
I saw a bunch of wrestling stuff when I was scooting through it today.
Yeah, he's an all-around toy collector, but his focus is DC. He's got tons of Batmobiles and stuff. So, but he's a great guy just to talk to. A really funny guy. Really enjoys his plastic. So, awesome. Good channel to watch.
Good deal. Okay, I think that takes us to.
If I'm going to do this, I'll need my news team at my side.
Let's get brutal.
So, a couple things here. This is the only news we have for the week. Why? Because you guys have been inundated with a crap ton of news already from 24-hour Oz Fest, as I referred to it. The Clubhouse, the San Diego Comic-Con. There has been so much news coming out. There's been a lot to hear and listen to. And honestly, I have not had a time to digest enough of it myself. So what I want to do is come back to a bunch of that news next week. We'll talk about that other Frazetta Girls figure and some other items. Just to call out before I jump into this, remember Savage Crucible has their pre-orders for Wave 2. There's also some, what is the one there? I can't remember what it's called. What was it? Fox Forge Choice. Sorry, I was trying to think of it. The Galactic Valor.
Galactic Valor, yeah.
Open. We'll talk more about that next week, but I just want to bring that to people's attention.
Let me just throw this out there too before you jump into Let's Get Brutal.
Yes,
Four Horsemen will be doing a live announcement for Cosmic Legion's Ox Crew Book 2 Saturday night at 8 p.m.
Oh, cool. Didn't see that.
Well, yeah, but I just came out today. I was going to send it to you and I forgot because I was busy at work. But yeah, so Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time, they're going to be doing a live. Right now, the plan is we're going to probably be talking about it, doing a little pregame clubhouse Saturday night, discuss
Awesome.
that. So
good deal. Good deal. Yeah, definitely give you guys some content to talk about. I'll be busy watching SummerSlam, but that's just me.
Can't imagine.
Yeah, that said, let's talk La Brutal Realm, right? So I don't know if folks have seen it. If you haven't, get out there, check out the Kickstarter. Really, really cool line. I'm being honest, right? I was hesitant on this line when I first saw it come out because I felt it looked too boxy. I wasn't confident in the molds, essentially, the way it looked and whatnot. I was hesitant, but I still kept my finger on it and kind of watching it. And as we've seen it progress, it's progressed, in my opinion, significantly well.
You and I both were like that. We're like, yeah, the concept's really cool. We really like the way it looks, but it just looks a little off. The bodies look a little off.
Exactly.
That's really showing us. The more I'm like, oh hell yeah, I'm all over this.
Exactly, and it fits right in with that fantasy world of kind of fantasy world lore stuff that I'm playing with. But that said, they're at about 38,000 almost right now. They have a goal of 140,000. We got 30 days left to go. 284 people have backed it. I know I haven't opened up my wallet. Punk, have you opened up yours? Let's get this thing, funded. I don't, put 103,000 there on it, Punk. You can cover this.
Yeah, come on, Punk.
But I really want to see this fund at least to the 140. But there's some really cool stretch goals. Most recently, though, they did share today, and I don't think I got all the images on. I know I don't have all the images. I grabbed one key one, but this is one of their prints, one of their prototypes, and they actually painted it up, and it looks so good. Really happy with the paint job and that they're looking to have. Thought it, highlights a lot of the detail. It looks a lot cleaner than the gray kind of resin, coloring that they had. What I thought was cool is it also highlighted the foot mold here. You can see it looks like it's a pop socket on the feet, so that's cool. A lot of opportunity to.
So it must be that those are the boot tops and overlay then. Or do the feet just go on underneath with the overlays on the shins?
This picture doesn't show it well. I'm not quite sure. But my thought process is that it must kind of like, right where the boot comes, and then you just have the fur. Or are you talking about like the fur wrappers, like those slide off?
Yeah, I wonder if those slide off or if it's just, the shin guards are on there and then you put the feet on underneath them instead of boot
I'd have to.
It's hard to say, right? But I didn't see anything that displayed that either. But
give me 1 second. I'm gonna look at something on the other screen here. Yeah, it's hard to tell from the images that they displayed exactly because they don't show them with the feet attached. So that was hard to decipher. But one of the things I will say is they not only showed this one, and I couldn't find the second picture, but they did have they did have the one of the Caucasian characters. I don't know which one it was, but I saw something floating around today. I don't know who was sharing it, but they had his paint job too. I couldn't find the screenshots to share with everyone, so unfortunately, we didn't get that one here. But definitely go check it out. It's looking really cool.
Yeah, this guy looks awesome. When I saw this guy with the with his paint done and his his face actually painted and everything else, looks friggin' awesome.
Yeah, and one other cool thing is been in touch with the guys from Brutal Realm, and I'm happy to announce that we've confirmed that they will come on the show on August 13th. So in 2 weeks, they'll be on the show with us. I believe a couple of the folks from there are going to be joining, and we're going to have some questions. We're going to help them, get the information out about Realm of Toys. So that'll be the main topic that week: Realm Toys and the brutal Realm figure line that they're trying to bring to fruition with Kickstarter. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, I know they've been. I think they were on Brick Show or they're on Brick Show this week. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah,
It's been a crazy week for me, but I know that they've been doing that. So I'm assuming they're going to be, continuing to kind of do like the, YouTube tour. So definitely check out in 2 weeks and see a little bit more from these guys and hear from the creators directly. I know I'm going to be digging into the lore when I talk to them. That's going to be my piece because that's a passion of mine. So if that's stuff that interests you guys, definitely join in as we'll go ahead and, ask the tough questions. Where do these guys come from? Who do they fight? Where's the bad guy? What's his villain story? What's his background? So we'll dig into that and find out what graphic novels coming or, those types of things, hopefully. So definitely, follow us in there. We'll have them on in a couple of weeks.
That'd be a good show.
That said, you want to check the chat real quick before we go into the main topic?
Doesn't look like much is new in there. Punk does agree. Chris is great people. Yeah, he was on with Punk's Thursday with a friend last week or the week before, and Aaron pointed out that Chris does do the Mafek stuff for DC also. Let's see, and that's pretty much it for now. So
sounds good. Well, I'm not going to play the runner again right away. We just played it. We had a brief, very brief, news segment tonight.
DJ 5000 has showed up. What's up, DJ?
So with that said, we talked about it, iconic toy lines through the decade. It's a little bit different. We always try to change up how we approach our main topic. Sometimes, Ed will present his top whatever, and I'll present mine. In this case, what we've decided to do is, present our choices for the decade, right? So we're going to go from the 70s to today, decade by decade, and we're going to, kind of highlight what we would associate was our most iconic toy line during that period of time, add a little bit of context around it, but then also highlight what the mass consumers decided was the most iconic just based on purchases and whatnot. So jumping right into that, we'll start
way back in the time machine of the 1970s.
This is pre Mr. Wonderful entering in the world.
Yes.
So I'll start this one off real quick, Ed, just because our choices, right? You can see you got the Adventure People for you. You'll talk a little bit about that. I picked Star Wars. I'm gonna tell you why. I wasn't alive yet, so like when I tried to think about like what I would pick from the 70s, I was like, well, what would the 70s represent for me if I was digging into the way back when mobile and whatnot? And I went with Star Wars, right? When I listed out all the things, there was. I got some notes here on the side. There was a bunch of stuff, including, Barbie. There was some Hot Wheels, G.I. Joe. 12-inch stuff was there. There was Legos, Fisher Price, Little People. Wasn't my thing. There was Simon from Milton Bradley, like the game. There was some Evel Knievel stunt bicycle I saw, and then $6 Million Man from Kenner. So when it all came down. So when it all came down to like where I saw it, it was kind of like Star Wars was like the one I knew the most of, even though I still think they stole from Spaceballs.
Well, of course they did. I mean, how else could you get such stories that are so closely to, overlapping? I mean,
exactly.
So I went to, I would say for me, it was definitely a tie between the Fisher Price Adventure People and the G.I. Joe Adventure Team from the 70s. Yes, both were basically quote unquote nameless characters with, based on adventure stuff. But the Fisher Price Adventure People, my aunt and my dad both worked at the factory that made those. So I had a ton of these. The company Fisher Price headquarters is actually 20 minutes from my house. And I just had a ton of these. My brother had a ton of these. My cousin, that same age as me, had a ton of these. And, they're 3 3/4 inch figures. They had great vehicles. They're durable as hell. You could beat the snot out of them. They didn't break. But they also, once G.I. Joe and Star Wars came out, the figures all went together because they were the same scale. Fisher Price Adventure People was actually used the figures were used to make prototypes for the upcoming Star Wars action figures before kind of released those. So really cool line. And then of course G.I. Joe's always been my love since the Adventure Team. Everybody knows it's ever watched this channel knows my love for the Adventure Team. So but yeah.
Awesome. So, that makes sense. And, I know when you and I were going back and forth, you had provided two options, kind of a tie. I picked one. I know that they were very close for you. I just went with the one that I thought would add a little different,
it's good you pick, because I wouldn't have been able to pick from either one of them.
So if you had to guess, do you know, Ed, what the overall for the 70s was? And chat, let's make this interactive. Do you guys, have an idea of what the overall 70s toy would have been? The iconic toy of the 70s.
Well, DJ says Star Wars, Adventure People, and Godzilla for him, and Nolan says he loved Planet of the Apes in the 70s. Also great stuff from Mego. If I was to guess from the 70s, man, I'd have to say Star Wars, even though it really didn't start till like 77. But as far as overall sales go, I would say Star Wars or the G.I. Joe Adventure Team.
Yeah. I'd say you were close. It was Spaceballs, but hey, no. It was Star Wars. It was Star Wars for the 70s. And fun fact is that after, and these are just some notes I have here, but basically after Star Wars New Hope in 1977, Kenner's Star Wars figure became a massive hit. The figures were so popular that Kenner sold early bird certificate packages for Christmas 1977 due to high demand, which promised delivery of the first figures in early 78. And the Star Wars line generated hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, setting a standard for movie merchandise in that crossover.
We've covered this a lot, right, throughout our 18 episodes. But Star Wars had such an impact on the overall world, let alone the toy world. It basically solidified 3.75 inch as a standard for action figures at that point in time. Everything was going from adventuring and cowboys, military stuff like that, to total sci-fi, all that stuff. I mean, it changed everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of us, like I said last week when we were talking about stuff, or maybe it was the week before, but there's a lot of us that had action figures for Star Wars before we even saw the movies or even, knew what the movies were about. So
I mean, I probably actually no. I knew what Star Wars was before I got action figures, because my parents weren't into it, so I didn't get it in the 80s. I got the Star Wars figures in the 90s when they re-released the movies, and at that point I knew Star Wars was the knockoff of Spaceballs, so I knew what it was at that point.
So you were customizing all your Star Wars into what they were really.
Yeah, I was so furious that I didn't get Dark Helmet without having to make my own back in the 90s. It was really cheesy. And yogurt, I mean, that was just whatever. But
so what was the overall sales for Star Wars? Does it say?
So I don't know that I have the details on the exact sales. I just had that they were, they set the standard and generated hundreds of millions of dollars.
Hundreds of million dollars, yeah, I believe it.
But they were considered the highest grossing one.
Yeah. Which is crazy too, considering it started basically end of 77, right? So you're talking,
it was 77 with a promise of 78 to have delivered.
You're talking 3 years of toy sales, and it still killed the entire decade, right? I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that to highlight, right, and I think we kind of alluded to it, you're coming off the 12-inch scale figures, and they revolutionized the industry really with that 3 3/4 standard scale, which really carried for a long time.
Oh yeah.
So definitely iconic for sure. So Star Wars wins the 70s, and going into the 80s, and I felt like coming up with a song for this, but I just didn't have time, so I'll just kind of don't bounce now, right? Because that's like the 80s, I think.
80s is total synthesizer, man.
Oh, okay, maybe I'm thinking 70s. Yeah.
Give a little Europe Final Countdown.
Couple old school videos, right? From back in the day that I probably shouldn't talk about. That said, for the 80s, I'll let you go first. We've got the DC.
So the 80s for me, it was a tough call between G.I. Joe, Real American Hero, and a few other lines. But I would say my favorite during the 80s is probably the Superpowers for sure. They I started out with just a Batman and a Robin, and then I got the Batmobile, got the Superman, and then I had the entire collection. The only thing I never got was the Hall of Justice, which I've always wanted to get, but it's out of my collecting price range now. But
for now.
for now.
When we get that punk money, we're talking
That's right.
different things.
That's right. When we get that punk money, I'm owning it all. I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna be like Bobby Valla and just have collections of everything that I want.
Yeah, I mean, hey, got to get there. Can't get there without working towards it.
But yeah, Superpowers was a great line. It was kind of funny because Superpowers came out right around the same time that Marvel had the Secret Wars out, and Secret Wars and Superpowers were basically the same scale. So you could actually have your Superman fight Iron Man, and Batman take on Captain America. And it was good. It was a great thing, and all the characters had active features. Like Superman had a super punch, and Robin had a karate chop. The Flash's legs move, Hawkman's wings move. So they were really cool, really innovative. Another Kenner line, of course. So it was really innovative at the time.
So for me, I mean, that makes sense, right? Those would have likely been things that I collected if I wasn't so pigeonholed to the small window of entertainment that I found, which, I mean, if anybody's been following me for anywhere over the last year, we know it's wrestling. It's pro wrestling, right? So for me, if I thought of the choices of the 80s, it's automatically going to jump to those LJNs. And when I think of LJNs, if you've never had one, you've never benefited from being hit with one. Those things are rock solid bricks. Most people's dogs made them to chew toys. That's actually, I'm pretty confident, where Kong, the branding behind Kong became a thing. It's like, oh, it's this large, heavy, solid plastic rubber. The paint rubs off really quick. You cannot articulate them at all. So for me, this is like, you got to think, right? This is a struggle because I'm all about that articulation.
So fun story with these, the wrestling figures, right? My cousin, who's a few years younger than me, he was a huge wrestling fan. He had a bunch of these wrestlers. He had the ring, and his house that he lived in, his bedroom was upstairs, and it had like a balcony overlooking the stairway. And the stairs went down, and then of course they had a landing, and then went back down. And he had two rings, and we set one ring up on the higher level and one ring at the bottom of the stairs. Then the last 5 steps, we put point systems on the steps, and then we just like do these wrestling moves over the balcony's railing. And wherever the figure landed, we had this whole game. We'd play that for hours, and those figures are great because they just bounce all over the place. I mean,
you weren't breaking one until the dog got through it and shoot its head off. So I mean, that it sounds like you were playing the original Royal Rumble from the sounds of it. But yeah, so for me, it was the LJNs. I know that's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but for me, the 80s were wrestling. That's when WrestleMania, WWF started, and for me, it's the iconic toy. The earliest toy I could think of and whatnot. So where I really started to breathe and enjoy things was right around that time frame. So for me, it was definitely the LJN WWF figures.
All right.
That
so
said,
before we go into the overall, let's see what people are saying in the chat. So DJ says he's got a 78 Hammerhead hanging with him. Brutal Rum was here watching for a little while. They got to go.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for guys for stopping by. Travis spent his song time making me a ridiculous jingle, so he can't get to the Toyleet songs. Yeah, I know. You always, Ted. DJ also says, Star Wars and wrestling for him in the 80s. Nolan was 80s is a tough one. G.I. Joe or Superpowers. And Matthew says 70s, Mego. Yeah, 70s, Mego's superheroes and all that were great. 80s was Joe. 90s was the Turtle and McFarlane Spawn. Spawn was another good one. And video game figures. So... What's your let's see what my guess would be for the 80s? I would have to say Real American Hero for the 80s for sure.
That's a good guess, and I'll let the chat get a couple seconds in here, see if that's, and I know it, so I'm not going to guess. I'd be 100% right 100% of the time, since I had put those.
What's in the box? Nothing's in the box.
Right.
That's why Travis can't play, because the answers are all in this box of emptiness.
So for those playing along. I see a couple messages in there we already covered. People mentioned what theirs are. Weren't sure if they had a guess, but I'll go ahead and jump into it. At this point, we have the overall for the 80s.
Oh, nice.
He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Launched in 81. Was a line of muscular action figures. Became a crucial phenom supported by the animated TV show. Characters, vehicles, captured play sets, tons of sales. Again, it launched in 81. It became the highest grossing toy line of the decade. At its peak, Masters Universe line generated over $400 million in annual sales. And the accompanying animated TV series helped drive the popularity of the toys, making He-Man a household name. So
I'm really surprised that He-Man beat out G.I. Joe. That really, really surprises me. But
yeah,
I don't.
I was too, and then I thought about the 80s, and I thought about the generation that were raising kids in the 80s, and G.I. Joe had a militaristic approach to it, and I feel like the 80s was a real hotbed for people who,
Cold
you
War
know,
and all that going on.
they were trying to
makes
shift
sense.
away from some of that, so you could have the focus on He-Man because it's all fantasy, right? And it wasn't, there was no gun, there wasn't the gun approach to it, so it makes sense to me, just in the world that we were in.
Yeah. The best thing I find that's funny about He-Man is that everybody called it He-Man. No one even associated it with being Master of the Universe, and
right.
that was technically the name of the whole thing. So
yeah, absolutely. One of the next one we'll kind of go into here is the 90s. So before we go in there, or I guess as we go in there, I think you called out yours last time. I'll call out mine to start, and we'll hand it back to you. So for me, again, common trend here, early 90s. I still remember the time I was in a grocery store with my grandmother, and there was the Big Boss Man. Hasbro. It was the first time I seen one in the store. She bought it for me. And he had that like chop action arm and whatnot. So for me, the most iconic toy of the 90s for me, while there was plenty, you can talk about the old, Marvel figures that they had, and they had a wide variety in the 90s, tons and tons of them. Another one that was a huge one that I didn't have a lot of, but my friends did, were the Ninja Turtles. It wasn't, it's not that I don't think of them for the 90s, but again, just kind of staying what's, true to myself was the wrestling. So for the 90s, I went with these Hasbro, kind of, snap action, hands and arms. They had the Warrior, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, all the superstars of my childhood. So that for me was the iconic choice of the 90s.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, most people that have been around this channel for a while know that I was a huge 1/6 scale GI Joe fan, 1/6 scale in general, and in the 90s, I was out of high school and college and in the Army. I was married and having kids, and I kind of became the adult collector and photographer. So the GI Joe, they came back out with a 12-inch line. It was called the Classic Collection. It was strictly military based at that point in time when it first came out. Modernized 1/6 scale figures, all sorts of detailed uniforms and equipment. And I had more of these than I could possibly count. My first one, however, that I ever got was by winning a Toy Fair magazine contest. And that was the first time I got a G.I. Joe Classic Collection figure. And that just started the ball rolling on that rabbit hole that my ex-wife was very happy that I went down because it was an expensive hobby.
Gotcha. Good deal. So, we'll talk about, I mean, that makes sense, right? This was the revitalization of those 12-inch ones, if I understand it correctly. And I didn't collect these, but I do remember seeing these. I remember my dad right around that age going, what were they? There was some shoe, Converse. He was like, Converse shoes and 12-inch GI Joes. That's the way to go. And he'd say that to me, and I'd be like, nah, Dad, Nikes, and no, I'm gonna go find something else to play with.
Yeah.
So, that was me for the 90s, right? So
I like your dad.
So he was all about that, right? Now like the shoes are, those Converse. My daughter wanted a pair of them a couple years ago. My son bought them for her. They were like not cheap at all. So things have changed and gone full circle. But talking about the 90s, right? There was other toys, right? So I'm gonna throw this out to the chat before we announce the overall in the 90s who was deemed by the.
My guess would be Star Wars Power of the Force. That's my guess.
Star Wars Power of the Force. Awesome. So that's your guess.
Yeah.
Chat.
While we're giving the chat a couple seconds, the Briscoe showed up. What's up, Briscoe?
Hey, Briscoe.
And Kenzo Creations. Kenny showed up. What's up, Kenny? And DJ says no love for Stretch Armstrong. I love Stretch Armstrong, dude. I had Stretch Armstrong. My brother had the Stretch Monster.
I remember them from the 90s. I actually do, but they always exploded and had that stuff.
Yeah, they're a little more durable back in the 70s when they put like hazardous rubber around that silicone gel. But,
Got you. So
and Fat Red Foo's here. So what's up, Fat Red?
awesome. So as the group's kind of pulling in their guesses and stuff, a couple of items I just want to throw out there to remind people of the 90s. 90s was Tickle Me Elmo Frenzy, right? It was Polly Pocket. There was things like the Power Rangers from Bandai. You had Pokemon, which was a huge thing. Tamagotchis. Anyone that was a kid or had a kid during that time frame fully knows all of these items. Pogs were a thing. Game Boy became a big item, and then you even had things like Nerf guns and Super Soakers, and Super Soakers were huge.
Oh, Super Soakers were huge, yeah.
And for the ones that collected, the girl dolls and stuff, American Girl doll was a big thing in there.
Oh, yeah.
It was introduced in the 80s, but really caught some traction and popularity in the 90s.
How popular? I don't know if you ever knew this, if anybody knew this, but the American Girl dolls, there was 2 places. One was in Chicago and one was in New York City, I believe.
Yep. New York City.
You could actually take your American Girl doll and you could take her to this place at one of the Fisher Price Mattel owned places. Yep. And they had a studio there that'd give them a makeover. It'd give your daughter a makeover. You could take them out to dinner. They had tables that were set up just for them. And I mean, it was like a whole actual interactive thing that the little girls could do with their dolls. It was absolutely crazy.
Yep, absolutely. Love Kenzo's comment here. 90s for him was playing basketball and changing girls.
Changing girls. Wow.
He corrected himself. It's chasing girls. Thank you, Kenzo, for the clarification.
Well, I guess if you're chasing enough of them, you're changing them often too, right?
Changing the numbers, right? But there was one other item that I remember, which my friend had a ton of them, was the Jurassic Park toys from Kenner.
Oh,
that was a huge toy line in the 90s for me, with the dinosaurs and the figures and Grant and all those characters. And they had all the vehicle accessories and stuff. And then, like you said, Star Wars action figures from Kenner Hasbro. So there's a lot of things. But, the overall top one was Ninja Turtles.
Oh, nice.
So
I can see that.
Debuting in the 80s, right? But it peaked its popularity in the early 90s. They were based on a comic book and animated series, as we all know, but it included a wide range of characters, vehicles, and playsets. One of the things I do want to point out, though, is when I was doing it, it was a close second, and I didn't. Depending on where you looked, you could see this listed as the top toy of the decade too. Beyond the Ninja Turtles, originally I had Pokemon in there, but when I saw the Ninja Turtles, it was close comparison that I went with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because their IP is everywhere, but additionally because of the fact that the Pokemon's largest bread and butter and numbers were generated from the video game. And while they did have a TV series in the 90s, and it's still around today and it's been massive, I didn't feel that it necessarily aligned with what we were trying to do with the toys, right?
Yeah.
So, just a fun fact about the Pokemon, it launched in 96 and it became a global phenomenon. By the late 90s, there was toys, trading cards, video games, and generated billions of dollars in revenue. The combination, of the animated series, trading card, and toys created a multi-billion-dollar franchise that dominated the back end of the 90s, and it's still very beneficial and financially stable to this day.
It's actually kind of crazy how many lines like Jurassic Park, Turtles, He-Man, G.I. Joe, Turtles, especially like Pokemon and Turtles and Jurassic Park, because they're not even those are still selling to kids. That's not even nostalgia stuff. He-Man, G.I. Joe's still been around because of the nostalgia, but Pokemon, Turtles, Jurassic Park with the dinosaurs and stuff, those have just been steadily on the shelves since the 80s, 90s, whenever they started. It's just crazy that they got such staying power. Their Turtles come out with a new TV show, movie, cartoon, comic book, whatever, and a new series of figures every 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, there was a ton of it we saw over the weekend.
Oh, right?
In Diego. So yeah. We're gonna move into the 2000s, and then before we talk about ours, I'm going to just kind of set this up so people can think about this and then chime in the chat. Beyond the two that you see here on the screen, there was things like Beyblades, Webkins, Bratz, Tamagotchi Connection, which was more of a digital aspect of it. Then, digital, it was more of a modern digital entertainment. Transformers were pretty big in the early, the 2000s. American Dolls again continuing to be, expand their stuff. But other things like Nerf and Strike, Razor scooters, Yu-Gi-Oh trading cards and related things, and then Bakugan battle brawlers, became big into the 2000s. But think about those. Think about what you might recognize as the bigger, the iconic of the decade by consumer as a whole.
Or feel free to add what you think, which you want to tell us what yours was. It's either one.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Ed, talk a little bit about yours here.
So, staying with my love for the 1/6 scale, the Ultimate Soldier was the line that came out late 90s, mostly military based, and then in the 2000s they started doing America's Finest, where they had police and SWAT and rescue people and stuff like this. And there's that one picture I think you had in a video at one point in time of me sitting on my back porch with my Ultimate Soldier collection. And the figures are great. They were $20 for a 12-inch figure, fully dressed, fully equipped. They had 1/6 scale Humvees in the market for $50. They had a helicopter on the market for like $75, which you think about the fact that those were 1/6 scale, and now you can't even get a 1/12 scale vehicle for under $100. It's just crazy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, they're great, really highly detailed. The figures that they made were basically just like the GI Joe Classic Collection, that style, but their uniforms and their equipment was far superior to what Hasbro was making. I mean, not the Hasbros were bad, but these guys went like full detail with their uniforms as opposed to just kind of keeping it more generic like Hasbro did.
Gotcha. Yeah. So keeping with my trend, because
I can't imagine that you got a wrestling line. I just
I was lucky enough that at this point
it's a shocker.
they introduced, thank you, Rocco. Thank you, DJ Nolan. This is awesome. Appreciate you guys jumping in. For me, continuing to stay with the wrestling theme, you had the Jakks Pacific action figures. They introduced, it was a 1/12 scale ish. It still kind of is. They have that 1/12 scale ish type thing, but things weren't in scale. Yes, some of the figures were bigger. Some of them had different bucks and stuff. It wasn't the same regurgitated thing over and over again, but they introduced more articulation. And then they had different ones. They had they had their basic ones, which had limited articulation. And then they introduced some additional, articulation in some of their more expensive figures within the Jakks line. But this allowed me to get right into it. Right. So early 2000s, I had my first son. A couple years later, he's, playing toys, and I started buying wrestling action figures and, modifying and customizing, buying lots off eBay, things like that. And, really started to build up that bucket of action figures. But the Jakks Pacific for the early 2000s, right up until the 2010s was the only toy line I collected. And I collected a lot of these. Toys R Us was a big, carrier of these. And what was really cool was, with regards to these, they went with wrestling, the history and library so deep. So they would get contracts with folks that weren't there anymore. And, you could get guys that, from the 90s or the 80s, historical figures and stuff. It was really cool when they introduced that. And, for me, it was huge getting these. You had
I remember being
characters.
I wasn't, I never really collected wrestling figures, but I had some WCW figures back in the 80s, but the ones that were designed kind of like the He-Man figures, Master Universe, those ones.
Okay.
But
yeah. Remco or something like that.
Yeah, Remco made those. Yep. Yeah. But I remember in the 2000s, like walking down the aisle and seeing Superfly Snuka or Hulk Hogan wrestling figures from Jakks Pacific. It was pretty wild. So, before we go into the number one, let's see what the chat has to say.
Yeah.
Nolan says 2000s for Master of the Universe for him. DJ says it was all wrestling for him. So, yeah. And Rocco the Greats here says smash that like button. Thank you, Rocco.
Appreciate the support and love.
Give a little self-promotion for Rocco and his Goose Gang. System Island.
Yeah, he just had some drops the last week or so. Some cool stuff there for sure.
Yeah. And Jakks Saturn was hard to find.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
There was so many of them that were hard to find, man.
Yeah.
Then
I have no idea what the number one would be for the 2000s. If I had to guess, it's probably some obscure video game related thing.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. So for the main, the biggest draw here, we talked about these guys last week.
Really? Lego.
Yeah. Big rivalry.
Yeah.
Big rivalry.
Yeah.
Bratz.
Really?
Bratz dolls. They
Oh,
were the biggest.
yeah.
It was
That makes
introduced in 01. They quickly rose in popularity. They captured about 40% of the by 2005. They ended up capturing about 40% of the fashion doll market, and they generated over $2 billion in revenue by the end of the decade. The doll's modern, edgy fashion sense appealed to a new generation of collectors of the Barbie doll.
I had tons of Bratz dolls in my house.
Well, you had a couple daughters, right?
Well, my one daughter, who just turned 25 last week, she was primed for this because she was born in 98, so 4 or 5 years old. Bratz dolls had lots of good colorful packaging, lots of good commercials. There was a cartoon for a while. So yeah, we had lots of Bratz dolls. And she was a brat, so it was fitting.
Yeah, so that was the number one. Now we're gonna jump into the 2010s and we'll take a look at what we have there. I'll talk about mine first, then you could talk about
we've been traveling through time forever now. Jeez.
Yeah, it's like fast forward, rewind, things like that, right? So
let me guess, yours is a wrestling.
No, it's not. That's yours. You're on the right?
Oh, okay. I'm on the right. So yeah, mine was WWE something or other. I don't have any idea even who this character is, but yeah, that was my favorite.
So for the 2010s again, talking to folks and just giving them an idea of what they can think of if they're trying to come up with their options. You have things like Funko Pops, LOL Surprise, Hatchimals, Nerf guns, Legos.
Oh man.
There was a bunch of things, right? For me,
wasn't the Hatchimals like for one Christmas like the I took a Elmo kind of thing? Weren't they a crazy thing? The Hatchimals.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it was something in an egg.
Yeah.
And my kids were not. My son wasn't into it. My daughter would have been too young. And being honest, if I could have held on to those things, I would have. If I grabbed them, I probably would have at the time because I was trying to hustle. I probably would have hustled them for a pretty penny. Please don't hate me.
I did. Me and my brother-in-law bought like 5 or 6 of them and then ended up selling them. Because everybody was after those.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're after certain like animals or stuff too. That was you didn't know what you didn't know what you were gonna get.
Yeah. So for me here, I'll talk about mine and then we'll throw it over to you. I love yours, by the way. I didn't collect those, but being a huge Lord of the Rings fan in the early 2000s, when they came to market with those, if I had been into outside of wrestling, that would have probably been something I looked at. So I want to also point out that there was other things like Marvel Legends, and right around this time is actually when I started to branch into other brands besides wrestling. And it was harder because of the fact that there was some other stuff. I got the, what was it? I got the Winter Soldier and the Red Skull from the MCU stuff. Just I love the way they looked, and the scales and stuff were starting to get there. And my son was just starting to collect a lot of these and stuff, so I kind of grabbed those. But again, for me, wrestling, I went with Mattel. Mattel brought to life to this point, and they still own the rights to it. They brought to life the best wrestling action figure. They made advances from 2010 till now, but they gave you elite level articulation. They gave you true to life scale. And for me, that was huge because to me, while I can be creative and stuff, being able to see the Big Show standing next to Rey Mysterio and having them look like they could be the same size was extremely frustrating during the Jax time. When they went to scale and the Elites and the Mattel owned it, you're now getting a 7-foot monster in the Big Show and a 5'5", 5'6" Rey Mysterio Jr. So to me, that was huge. I went ahead and I went crazy, built an entire arena in my basement and garage for my son to play with them on. So they had the ring, the entrance ramp. We built all that stuff. Right, exactly. My son. So for me, again, we are 5 for 5. We've got one more for the 2020s. I have gone all wrestling all the time, and we'll see what I did for the 2020s. Might shock you all, to be honest. But it's the Elite Collection and the Mattel line here from the 2010s for me is the big item.
Just so everybody knows, I have no idea what his 2020 pick is either. So I would guess wrestling, but I don't know. He might surprise us with his his shift in direction that he's gone. So, so for me, for the 2010s, I was probably, I mean, I was still collecting a lot of 1/6 scale stuff, a lot of vintage G.I. Joe stuff, but I collected the Lord of the Rings figures in the 90s when they were out. And then when they started making the Hobbit movies, of course, in the 2010s, I collected those figures as well. So they were great figures. They were, you know, the likenesses were okay for the movie characters. It was mostly just the, you know, you could tell they were hobbits compared to elves to wizards. You know, they kept the figures kind of scaled where they needed to be. So even though the likenesses weren't that great, they kept the clothing and stuff close enough so you could tell who was who. You know, you could definitely tell the difference between Merry and Pippin and Frodo and Sam and, you know, all the dwarves and stuff like that. So
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And being honest, if this was today and that was something that came to fruition and it was in scale with the fantasy stuff, I will be all over those.
yeah, and they were like a 5-inch scale, I want to say. So they weren't quite 1/18th and they weren't quite 1/12th. They were kind of in the middle there.
Right, they're on unique space.
Yeah, 5-inch scale figure. So they weren't really, I mean, the articulation was limited. You know, if they came out with like a 1/12 scale version of the Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings characters now, man, people would be all over that.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I think is funny right here is what DJ says here. Nobody wanted to start over the wrestling collection. Then Mattel said, hold my beer. He's 100% accurate. I actually had refused to go into the Mattel ones because I had so much pot committed in the Jacks. But then I was in the store and it was actually an old Kmart and I saw the Mattels. And it was after like their first couple waves came out and they had some, it was like a 2-pack and it was a basic 2-pack. And I was like, these are in line with my Jax ones, like in the sense of articulation. You know, they didn't have the ab crunch like the elites and stuff, but I was like, the detail was way better. The scale was what sold me. And I was like, hold on, let me look at this other one. I was like, oh shit, I'm selling all these Jax figures. Like I'm going all in. And that's literally what I did. And just dropped so much on switching out of the Jax line to the Mattel.
Yeah.
So
it
DJ
sucks when that happens, when they switch brands in the middle of a line and then it's better and you're like, oh man, now I got to buy all these again. That's like what would happen right now if somebody different took over DC from McFarlane. People would be like, okay, time to slide these all over and go for DC.
I think that's like a really good, I think, at least in my perspective, that's like a really good example because I think that like there's a lot of people that collect the McFarlane because it's all they can get their DC figures in. But if you had someone that came out and did like what Mattel did to Jax, because I would say that the Jax level of detail and articulation would be the equivalent of lacking that I think you know, McFarlane has, that if they came out and let's just say Hasbro or Mattel came out and said, we're going to do DC and we're going to do it in 1/12 scale, like true life. And we're going to be able to play with these right in line with your Marvel Legends and stuff. I think there'd be like, oh shit, like we're unloading it. Like it's just happening. So, yeah.
All right. So while we're waiting for some of the chat to come in, Brat's car still infamous in the toy community. Absolutely.
Yes.
And Mr. Darklaw said his daughter missed Bratz, but Monster High was a big hit. Yeah, Monster High was huge for my daughter who's in the Air Force right now. She was a big Monster High fan. Nolan says the 2010s would be Paw Patrol for him because his sets with his son and his girls were into Monster High. Another Monster High vote. And what's Kenny into in the 20s? 10s?
That's a good one right there. I didn't even think of it.
Yeah, McFarlane Sports figures; those were huge. Kind of brought back that starting lineup thing. That's when he got back into toy collecting. DJ says wrestling again for him. And Rad Nom's here. What's up, Rad Nom?
What's up, brother?
And let's see, a bunch of saying hi. And nobody wanted to start. Oh, you already said that one.
Yep.
And this is the one I wanted to bring up. His guess would be Monster High for the high selling in the 2010s. So that's it. Let's see what's the number one.
Awesome. So the number one again appeared last week on the show around the biggest rivals. And I guess Ed?
Bratz.
Nope.
Lego.
Lego's huge in the 2010s. They started doing this before the 2010s and in the early 2000s, right around 2005. Actually, it's probably closer to 2008, 2009. They really started to snag up IPs like DC.
That's when they started really blowing up their IPs.
Exactly.
Coming out with the video games and all that stuff.
Yep. And then, you know, when they started doing that, throughout the 2010s, Lego maintained its position as one of the highest grossing toy lines in the world. In 2015, Lego surpassed Mattel as the world's largest toy company by revenue. Themes like Lego's Ninjago, which is their own primary stuff, the Lego Star Wars, and Lego Friends, along with successful movies and TV shows, helped them drive their sales over $5 billion annually during that period of time.
Did you ever play any of the Lego video games? Like
my oldest son was big into those. My youngest has played them a few times.
Yeah,
I never got into it, but I often got dragged into.
They were a lot of fun.
They were like, I was more into like the Call of Duties and the Grand Theft Autos at that time.
Yeah.
So when I sat in front of the Xbox to play with that and with my kids when they wanted to play that, it was just like, throwing a lightsaber around on the Star Wars
help me get this level finished, Dad. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, it definitely wasn't my game or my jam, but I definitely, played it.
Well done though. I mean, they were definitely well done video games, especially directed towards a younger, fan base, right? Because they were challenging, but they weren't so hard that kids couldn't do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're about to go into the 2020s, which is where we're going to wrap it up. And before we introduce ours, I want to call out some of the top toy lines in the 20s, right? So you're talking Lego again, Barbie from Mattel, Pokemon has put a lot of toys out there now too. Nerf always kind of hanging in those top toys. LOL Surprise, Baby Yoda was a big one. Marvel Legends is one of the top 15 or so. Funko still huge. Or at least was. I think it's to some degree kind of waning off a little bit after the COVID stuff. But Funko Pop, Baby Alive was big, things like that, right? So before we go into ours, I'm gonna go ahead and as we go into ours, I just want to tell the chat, go ahead, post your ideas and thoughts for what you think the consumer to this point. Again, we're only 3.5 years, right? 3.5 years into the 20s. They got a lot of life ahead of us in the next 6 years. Somebody could come out with something next year that just runs the gamut for the next 5 years. It'll be interesting to see, when you look back 6 years from now, what the 2020 iconic one was. But for now, Ed, you want to talk about yours?
Oh, yeah. My love for Mezcos. I put Gomez down there because Gomez is one of my favorite figures ever that I've ever had in my entire life. But basically all of Mezcos. I love the soft goods, probably a carryover from my 1/6 scale days where the cloth goods really made the figure. Mezco does it better than anybody else as far as the details and the stitching and everything for the soft goods. And Gomez is their mascot, and they just do whatever they want to do with him. He's been a secret agent. He's been an assassin. He's been an adventurer. He's been a ninja. He's been a samurai, all the stuff. So Mezco is just a cool toys. I got a couple of their Batmans and a bunch of other characters that they have. And it's just good articulation, great detailed. And you just can't, their marketing them actually producing stuff, the way they do it is difficult because when they release it, you don't know it's coming. And then it's sold out before you even have a chance to buy it. So you're usually shopping on the secondary market. Yeah. But like the pictures and the stop motions and things that they do for marketing is awesome. I mean, there's just no beating it. So
yeah, I love what they do with the especially the Gomez kind of lore. I don't know a lot about it, but there's a lot of cool stuff out there. I actually had like that spray paint with, I think he had like the blue hair or the
vapor.
Vapor. I thought those were really cool. I got a killer deal on it. On eBay at one point. I ended up getting rid of it because it just didn't fit into where I wanted and what I was doing. I thought it'd be a cool, figure to have, but I ended up moving on from it. They have a really cool product line that I think is cool. It's just not something that I follow closely, and it's a pricey one. So I did just get. Isn't Mezco the Conan that I just got?
Yeah, you just got a Conan.
Yeah, so like they have some really kick-ass stuff. So I definitely do have a Mezco. It's that Conan figure on my shelf over there. So yeah, there's for me, it's probably no surprise. I said it'd be a surprise, but it's not. I went with, so I'm taking it up a notch. Around 2019, I started actually easing out of collecting a ton of the figures because the price point on the, the elites were kind of getting to a point where I was just kind of like, I don't want to spend so much on these. And I wasn't watching wrestling as much during that period of time. There's kind of a little bit of a lull for me. But I still kind of, followed it enough to know certain characters and stuff. But then the Ultimates came out in 2019. I didn't jump on it at the beginning because I'm like, why are you re-releasing all the figures I have with slightly better ab articulation, some drop down joints, way more head, swappability, soft goods. Damn you guys, why are you doing this to me? But then they were only releasing a couple of years, so it wasn't such an issue because it's like, okay, I can like kind of prioritize just a couple of them and then kind of stay away from the elites. And I only grab the elites now for my youngest when he wants them, or if there's somebody specific for the first time that I can get up on the shelf there that I know is not going to get an ultimate, as I showed at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
So for me, staying true to, me and what I love. And it's funny because if, big picture, I have these ultimates. I have a decent amount of them up there, but I have a lot more Joes. I have a lot more Valverse. I have a lot more Mythic Legions, a lot more Savage. Like I have like all of that stuff. I have so much more of it. But for me, I'm still going to go with the, the WWE Ultimates here just because it's iconic for me. It's wrestling. It's always been. So really cool line. They've done a great job with it. I'm really happy with I love the soft goods they're doing. I love that you can get these different head sculpts with it. I used to have to do this by grabbing multiple figures, grab the head sculpt from another one and pop it. Here they throw some cool ones in there, which is really cool. And fortunately, the WWE is doing a really good job at securing the rights to historical figures and folks that they may not have had access to in the past, like the Steiner brothers from the 90s. And as a huge pro wrestling fan of the 90s and like tag team wrestling, they recently have their exclusive Steiner brothers 2-pack, which is like really, really cool. So huge fan of these. And again, 6 for 6 every year, every decade, iconic for wrestling. I wonder what 2030 is going to look like. That said, I don't know if there was any guesses in the chat, Ed. Did you see anybody?
A couple of conversation pieces. So if no one says for the 2020 so far for him, would have to be AWOC and Mythic Legions, both solid lines.
Yeah, and they're all really good. And honestly, you could probably argue for me that AWOC is the iconic line of the 20s because while I did Joe's and Valaverse, AWOC is one that I went so deep in, it pulled me into other lines that to me is kind of iconic. Like it's one that like pulled me in so deep that I'm buying all of these Savage, all of the even Masters of the Universe ones. Like I would even go as far as saying AWOC could definitely be my 20s figure because
I would
pull me.
I would say if you weren't a diehard wrestling fan that you are, AWOC would have definitely been on your list.
Absolutely.
I don't know if this was related to a toy or not, but Galen Merrick is the best Jedi fighter. Best Jedi. Fat Roo says he wants you to fight him. So I want to see you put Fat Red in like a suplex or a DDT because that would just be fun to watch. Not that I don't love Fat Red, but sometimes it's fun to watch your friend get his ass kicked. It's just
and Transformers didn't get a lot of love on this list, and I don't think I mentioned them much, but they've been around forever.
Oh yeah.
I just hate
they got some really good third party people making them now, especially in the robot form where they don't really transform; they're just the robots, which is cool.
I just hate Transformers because it means, Dad, can you swap this for me? And it's like,
Punk has told the story about how he tell his son, I'm transforming this once a week, and there's a reason for that.
I do it one time. I'm not doing it again. And then I'm like, here's your phone, find YouTube, let them teach you how. Because I have to do the same thing anyways.
Oh yeah. Briscoe says he didn't like it when Lego started doing IPs. I wasn't too much of a fan of it either, but I was a fan of that stuff too. The Knights, the Pirates, the Space.
I love the retro stuff, the Lego City and all of that stuff. And, what we grew up on in the early 90s and 80s. But I love that they were able to get IPs like DC.
Well, the IP saved them, right? I mean, it saved the whole company, which was
awesome. Good deal.
But I remember when Luke was little and he was really big into Legos. And I was building for him, and he'd be like, I tell him, all we had was like squares and rectangles and flat pieces. That was basically what we had as kids.
Well, when I was a kid, I don't even think we had figures. Might be because we were just so cheap and poor. I used to use just like the 4 blocks. I would use a blue one and a yellow one to like make my characters. And it was just 2 of them stacked on each other. And that was a person.
Mythic Legions for DJ. He's still into wrestling though. Yes, Lone Roach and Grub was an awesome Gomez pack related to the Lone Wolf and Cub samurai movie of the old. Briscoe says his was Motu, of course, all forms, and he believes that GI Joe is the best seller for the 20 so far. And real quick, 3-star draw has showed up, so thanks for stopping in, 3-star. He is going to get himself one of those Gomez's. He was all upset that I had Gomez at Joe Fest and he didn't even get a chance to see him. But
Yep.
Joy Toy and Jazzwares for Fat Dread and the vintage collection from Star Wars.
Oh, I was like, what is TVC? I'm like, is that
Yeah.
the time whatever continuum from Marvel or whatever?
And so far for 3-star, his favorite is Classified in Mythic Legions. So
Okay, awesome.
and that's it. So number
deal.
1, if I had to guess so far, I would have to say I have no idea for the 2000s. Jeez. Laugh Out Loud Surprise.
Yeah, I don't even know much about these. I just know that
Neither.
like they're in the stores and they're like I think they're like things that you like.
I think they're like
unboxing,
basically
right?
blind boxes, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
That's what I understand, and just kind of fun fact around it, right? So they've been around since they launched in 2016. They've continued to be incredibly popular, reporting over 4 billion in sales by 2020. And they think a lot of the success of it has to do with the attribution to the innovative unboxing experience and the collectible nature of the dolls, making them a top-selling line in the 2020s. So, like, not my cup of tea. Most probably anyone following the shows, cup of tea. But hey, we report it like we find it, and this is what we were able to find.
But Kayla, Silver K on Instagram, she comes on the Clubhouse. She was really big into the Disney version of this, which was I can't remember what they were called, but same type of thing, mystery boxes, but it's Disney characters. And I can see where the surprise, you don't really know what you're going to get. And then you're collecting the figures, and they have little special, like the ones that she was showing, they had a special like Disney thing that you could actually put the little tiny figures in so you can make sure you got the whole collection and all that stuff. So kind of set up like the way we used to, used to collect trading cards, right? It was the same kind of thing.
Yeah. That makes sense. And, as Nolan points out here, blind boxes, gambling for kids. Exactly.
Yeah.
Very much what
I took my kids to Comic-Cons and I couldn't tell you how many times, Dad, can we buy that $40 blind box from the, GameStop type of, place they had them? And I'm like, yeah, sure. But we're not getting anything else because that's a lot of money. And then they open up the $40 thing and it's like t-shirts and shit they don't give a shit about. And I'm like,
exactly.
So I own this now. And I guess here's $20. Go find something you want so you don't cry.
Absolutely. So, that kind of brings us to the, the end of the main topic. I hope folks enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Reminiscing around some of the things I collected. I guess I just collected wrestling stuff. No, I mean, I collected other things, but they were the ones that were my priority.
I tell you, it was really close for me not to have G.I. Joe for most of mine also. So.
Yeah. We kind of chatted about that ahead of time, right? And I said, I could pick this and I could pick that, but I think I'm going to stay close to home for mine.
Yeah. Some of those are chases and short pack stuff. So that's why. That's why they sell so well. Cause they're like, oh, I didn't get the golden whatever, right? It's got to go back and buy 17 more.
Yeah. I mean, and you're seeing that in other things. We saw chase figures, and I mean, I've seen chase and wrestling figures.
Everything.
They have the chases in they used to have them in the McFarlane sports figures for the NFL and the basketball, hockey stuff. Those were big. I mean, those things would flip for freaking tons of money if you got one. A couple $100 and you only paid like $20 for it. So, I mean, you're seeing it with Valaverse, right? With what he's doing with some of the bloody variants and things like that, right? So limited runs and, those are, aftermarket is fairly high. But yeah, people like that, with the YouTube gives a lot of people that opportunity to, break on camera and everybody gets the excitement of a scratch off ticket basically, right?
Exactly. So, that's what it is, right? They go on their blind box opening. What am I going to get? What am I going to get? Oh,
exactly.
Damn, I got the same one I got 17 times before.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to take us to the next slide here, which, just kind of call out the next week's show here. Toy scandals, the most controversial toys ever made. And no, we're not talking about the stuff you found in your mom's top drawer. That's not what we're talking about, folks.
Right.
This is controversial toys that we would have actually attempted to play with. So we're not talking about the massagers or anything like that. So have fun, guys. That said, I think what did Kenzo say there?
He said that he used to take his son over to the laugh out loud section and ask him which one he wanted, which doll he wanted, and his son would get pissed at him.
Good deal.
Such a good dad. Such a good role model. That's what dads are for.
Awesome. So, just want to say thanks for those that tuned in. We got a couple things we're going to close out with. Did want to stop sharing real quick. So go here. Again, next week, Toy Scandals, most controversial toys ever. A couple things I want to call out real quick before we do the around the horn on what we're going to be doing there over the next couple days, Ed, is that, again, we have that next week. So we have the most controversial toys ever. Then we are going to be joined by Brutal Realm.
Get brutal.
On August 13th, which I'm really, really excited about. Then we're going to be, we got some other topics, things like, the art of display, does size matter, school lunchbox things. We got some really cool topics we're going to be talking about over the course of the next month or two. I think we're booked up with everything we plan to do all the way through the end of September at this point, right? Some pending guests we're looking to bring in. But again, next week we've got the iconic toy lines we've got the most controversial toys ever made, and we have Brutal Realms following the next week on 8/13 to help hopefully push their Kickstarter over the finish line so we can get that funded, because that line is going to roll really good with kicking the crap out of this line and many others just like it. Oh, and I don't think I showed this, but I did get this the other day.
Oh, you got the damn throne.
Yeah, I gotta get this throne, and it's pretty freaking awesome. I forgot to show this. It works really good with your Savages and many other 1/12 scale figures. You'll see some stuff with that from me here in the future. But before we go, Ed, what do you got going on this week, brother?
What do I got going on this week? I'll be all over the place, modding for Punk on Thursday and Red on Friday night, and then I will be on the Clubhouse Saturday. Like I said, we're planning on doing, hasn't been absolutely decided yet. We're probably going to do like a pizza party pregame, Brick, Oz, and I for the Ox Crew Book 2 of Cosmic Legions on see that before the Clubhouse starts. And then, tune into the Clubhouse. We were not doing 24 hours this week. It'll probably be, a typical 6-hour show.
Awesome.
But awesome. And then Sunday's Hella Dope. And
Hella Dope.
And Hella Dope is a special announcement coming on Sunday. I believe Radnam and I will both be on there on Sunday night.
Oh, so,
cool. Look forward to that. New announcement type of thing going on there. And that's pretty much all I got. Next Tuesday, I'll be back here. What about you, brother? What you got going on?
I got a couple things going on. Still working pretty heavy in the dungeon. I've been very quiet about Hextech, but there's some news coming. I'm really excited. You guys know I mentioned it early on. I've been trying to keep type lit on things. Things are coming. Progress has been made. Be ready. Definitely really cool stuff to come on that. Just get ready for it. I'm very excited. Follow.
Look for my wallet. I'm ready.
Awesome. And then I have recently joined one of the Toyleet, not my co-host Toyleet, Ed, here on this show, but recently joined Aaron over there, Black Knight from Hella Dope Toys. He's got the 1-2 Kick Out podcast over on the YouTube, and that's focusing on the pro wrestling. Interesting. Wrestling, Mr. Wonderful.
I don't know why he asked you. You don't know nothing about that.
Exactly, right? So we're actually going to be recording and putting out the SummerSlam picks. One of the cool things we're going to be doing is there's a site out there that you can register for, and they have a for their big cards, the big wrestling cards, there's like a pick 'em match thing. So we'll have that out there for all the subscribers and viewers to take part in our monthly competitions for that. But we'll be picking our items. Go out and check it out. Again, it's 1-2 Kick Out podcast. I'm going to drop the link in the chat for folks. If you're a wrestling fan like myself, go out there, look that up in the YouTube there, and then go ahead and subscribe. Aaron's already been posting some stuff out there, so we'll have some more stuff releasing. It sounds like there's a few other folks Aaron's working with to bring more collectors or more people in the community that are into wrestling to talk about that stuff. With my connections within the independent wrestling scene, I have quite a few folks that I can reach out to, maybe bringing some guests on from time to time. With some direction from Aaron there. So yeah, that's the big thing for me. Be pretty busy outside of that this week. Probably try to catch SummerSlam at some point on Saturday, hopefully live. Otherwise, we catch a replay. And then, I'll be back here. I'll be back on Sunday night to watch the Hella Dope Boys, and catching other people's streams in between, and then we'll be talking about some controversy next week.
I just posted the link to the 1-2 Kickout YouTube channel, so head
Awesome.
on over there and give Aaron the Black Knight a sub, and he'll be co-hosting with Travis. I know he's got Ken from Toy Connections lined up to do some stuff with him also. Yep. So it'll be a fun show if you're into wrestling, especially, and be a fun show anyway because it's Aaron and Travis and Ken, which are all great guys. So
absolutely, awesome.
That's all that I believe we have, right? So
yeah, man, that's it.
Don't forget to tell your friends, tell your cousins, tell your neighbors to come in and check us out, subscribe, and like the podcast. We appreciate everyone that's been following and subbing and sharing. We've seen quite a good uptick in activity on the analytics and stuff. So do us a favor, if you do like it, you do enjoy the conversation, give us that like, give us that sub, and then if you feel that there's someone out there that has a passion like we do and wants to be part of the brotherhood, go ahead and give them a share.
Toys on the desk, it's the new habitat. Toyleet takeover, we're loving that. It's a snack high in the air where it's at. Everywhere's a playground for Mr. Wonderful. In the office, living room, let them breathe. Action takes it the trail through the mud and under sail. It's the Toyleet life. Beyond the shelf we prevail. Figures and cents, perfect place with hacks and stats, we own the space. From battle seeds to epic quests, our collection's always at its best.